Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovacs, and Mishnah Yomi is in Nedarim, chapter 2, Mishnah 4. Yesterday we compared some of the rules of Nedarim to Shavuot, to oaths, and now we're going to get into what happens if his neder is a bit vague. Stam Nedarim lahachmir. An unclear neder, we are stringent, and we will understand it to mean it to be a binding neder. The word stam means sort of without explanation. As we mentioned yesterday, a default period of Nazirut was 30 days. The Gemara says Stam Nazirut Shloshim Yom. Stam just means he didn't explain. So if he was vague, and it could be a neder, will be Mahmir, we'll treat it like a neder. Uperusham, but if he explains it, Lahaka, we can be lenient. Ketzad, how does this work? What's the example? A man says, Hare Amar, Hare Alai, Kibasar Moliach. He says, this item, maybe it's a loaf of bread, a sandwich, it's treated to me like salted meat, or keyayin nesech, like wine of libations, wine that's poured out as some sort of ritual service. So what did he mean? What meat and wine is he talking about? Im shel shamayim nadar, if he is intending to mean the meat or wine that is a sacrifice to Hashem in the holy temple, asr. Those items are forbidden, and they are, as we explained, made forbidden through voluntary human action. So he's now linking this loaf of bread with those items, and this loaf of bread is forbidden. It's a binding vow. But im shel avodah zara nadar, if he's talking about the idolatrous sacrifices, idolatrous bread and wine, mutter. As explained in Thursday's Mishnah, the first Mishnah in this chapter, items that are intrinsically, automatically forbidden can't be used to link a permitted item to now create a neder prohibition. The Mishnah adds ve'im stam, and if he just said it stam without explaining himself, asr, then he is bound by the vow. He's forbidden from eating this loaf of bread because we assume he meant those of the temple, which were made forbidden and can be used to link an item to a neder. The Mishnah continues with a similar example. Hare alai kecherem. He says, this sandwich is like a cherem for me. So what did he mean? Im kecherem shel shamayim, if he meant a cherem, something banned in the sense it was a cherem given to shamayim, given to the temple treasury, usr. Items in the temple treasury are forbidden for personal use, so this sandwich is usr. Im kecherem shel kohanim mutter, if he means the cherem, the cherme kohanim, the gifts that are given to kohanim for their own personal use, well, then the sandwich is still allowed. It's not subject to the vow. Im stam usr. If he did not explain himself, we assume he means to be machmer, kecherem shel shamayim, and the sandwich is forbidden. Vow is binding. Hare alai k'maiser. He says this sandwich is like meiser. Im meiser behema nadar. If he's talking about meiser behema, the animal that's separated one out of every 10 animals, usr, that is given to kohanim, used as a carbon, it is forbidden for private usage. Im shel gorin mutter. If he means it's what's separated in the granary, the gorin, meaning meiser rishon, well, meiser rishon is permitted. Now, there's a mitzvah explained in Masechet Maasrot to give meiser rishon to the Levim, but technically they don't have a specific claim on it, and doesn't have any intrinsic sanctity that prevents eating. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to give it to the Levim, though. Ve'im stam, and again, if he didn't explain himself, asr, we'll assume he means like meiser behema, which is forbidden, and his vow is binding. Hare like a truma. Another example, he says, this sandwich is like truma for me. Im ketruma talishka nadar asr. If he's talking about the truma that's given to the temple treasury, the coins that were put in the temple treasury to buy karbanot, then it is asr because those coins are forbidden for regular use. Im shel goren, if he's talking about truma taken at the threshing floor, mutter. Now, really, truma goes to kohanim, but what's going on halachically here, the Mefarshim explain, is his crop was forbidden to eat before he separated the truma. It's called tevel. Tevel means a mixture, but it's truma and hulin, regular produce, mixed together. So it was forbidden to eat before he separated the truma, and this truma that he's actually separating is now forbidden to eat by kohanim. So he hasn't changed the status, really. So it's not a binding vow. Im stam, and if he did not explain himself, we assume he means trumat alishka, and it's usr. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda makes a chiluk that Rabbi Meir did not make. He says, stam truma bi Yehuda asura. If somebody said it's like truma and he's in Judea, the area near the temple, the southern portion, the southern kingdom, Asura. Then it's Trumat Alishka, because a lot of Truma given in Yehuda, they were familiar with the Trumat Alishka in the temple. But Begalil, if we're up in the north, where they're not near the temple, Muteret. Then when he talks about Truma, be Mutter, because we assume he's talking about Trumat Agorin, regular agricultural Truma. Sheinan Shegolu Makirin et Trumat Alishka. He says when people in Galil hear the word Truma, they don't think Trumat Alishka, they don't think the temple treasury. The Mishnah brings a related case, Stam Charamim bi Yehuda Mutarim. Someone says Cherem by itself, in Yehuda, that's Mutter. We assume it's Cherme Kohanim, a donation given to Kohanim, which they're allowed to use. But Golil Asurim. But if they say Cherem in Golil, it's Asur. She'enan Shegolil Makirim et Cherme Kohanim. Up in Golil, if someone says Cherem, then we assume, oh, that's a Cherem. They're going to take that down to Jerusalem at the next pilgrimage and give it to the temple treasury, and not to the Kohanim. They don't really think about giving it to the Kohanim specifically. Mishnah Hay continues the idea of explaining a vague neder. Nodar, he made a vow, becherem, and it was a cherem, which usually means it's banned from me, and it's given to the temple or the Kohanim. V'amar then explains, lo nadarte elu b'charmo shel yam. I wasn't talking about cherem to the temple. I was talking about a charmo shel yam, a sea net used to trap fish. Where he says, Bekarban, v'amar lo nadarti ele bekarbanot shel malachi. Then he says, I wasn't talking about a korban in the sense of an offering at the temple. I was talking about an offering you'd bring to the king, meaning just a regular, normal king, not the King of Kings, Hashem. Hare otzmi korban. He says, I myself am a korban. Atzmi usually means me, myself. The Amar then he explains, Lo nadarte el be'etzem. He says, really, I wasn't making a nether on myself, but on an etzem. An etzem is a bone. Shehinachti liliot noder bow. I keep a bone in the drawer, and I use it to make nedarim. People think I'm talking about myself, I'm banning myself, and I'm really just banning that bone that's sitting in my drawer at home. Or he says, Konam ishti nehenet li. My wife is banned like a carbon from having any benefit from me. We saw in Ketuvot that is a nuclear vow to make in a marriage. It would end the marriage if not annulled. Amar then explains, Lo nadarti ela beishti rishona shegirashti. He says, I wasn't talking about my current wife. I was talking about my old wife that we were already divorced. Maybe because he was making nadarim back then too. So all kulam, in all of these cases, ein nishalin lahem. These are not binding vows. We do not force him to seek an annulment. A nishal would be to go ask a sage. He doesn't have to go ask a sage to annul them. He's explained them, even though the explanation might be a little far-fetched. But since this person is a regular person, a Talmud Chacham, he knows what he's doing, we accept his explanation. He doesn't have to undo it. Ve'im nishalu, but if they went and asked us, now the Bartner explains we're dealing with an Amaretz, a less educated individual, and they've already made such a vow, and they've been over the vow. They have violated their words already. So even though this wasn't really a biblically binding vow, because they had an explanation, they had a perush that would get them out of the vow, but they've already violated the vow, and now they're seeking to annul the vow, so they're treating it like it was binding. So what do we do then? On shinotan, we punish them, machmirin alehem, we are stringent on them, divrei Rabbi Meir. That's according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir said we might put them in a ban, not give them aliyahs in shul, and make them seek an annulment for this neder from another reason, from another regret they might have. The other sages disagree. They say, we annul their vow, we seek an opening to annul this vow. And then we teach them not to be make such vows. They will not be lightheaded with Nedarim. They will not make Nedarim lightly. They will not use a bone in the drawer to trick people that they're making a binding neder and such things. Yashar kochachem and Shabbat Shalom.